Welcome to the Jessica Viera Show, the space where we break toxic patterns, rewrite our realities, and call out the dating dynamics that no one wants to talk about. Hi, my name is Jessica Viera, and if you've ever felt like you're auditioning for love, stuck in situationships, or wondering why you keep attracting the same emotionally unavailable partners but with different faces, then buckle up, you are in the right channel. Are you ready to dive in? Let's start today's episode.
What is up, fam? Welcome back to the Jessica Viera Show. I'm so excited to have you in the room today. We're going to be diving into another juicy, spicy, controversial, and polarizing conversation. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about sleeping for validation, the cost of seeking love through sex. Gosh. Sex is such a beautiful thing, but it's also such a good thing, but also such a deep triggering thing in so many different ways. And it definitely shows you so many parts and so many facets of your own personality and your own shit, really. So anyways, let's dive in. So have you ever wondered why we keep chasing love in all the wrong places? Why we seek validation through sex? Oh, maybe if I have sex with this person, that they will love me. Maybe they'll like me more. Or, oh, this chemistry feels just so good. Like maybe we should just have sex on the first date. Why we go for the walking red flag, even when we know we should be choosing the green flag with a 401k and a good morning text. Let's be honest. If you've ever texted, "What are you doing?" at 2 a.m., you already know what I'm talking about. But why do we do this? Why do we sleep with the wrong people? Why do we have sex on the first day? Why do we entertain and get into bed with people that are just energetically not good for us, and yet we think that they're great for us, but we know that they're not good for us? And why do we crave attention from the most unavailable, emotionally constipated people? Well, today we're breaking it all down. And I'm going to tell you exactly why you do it, because at one point in my life, I used to have sex with everyone too. And I used to sleep with people that I just knew I was probably never going to see again. I used to have sex with men that I wasn't even connected to. In fact, it was the worst sex of my goddamn life, and that I'd be thinking like, why the hell did I even do it? So today we're breaking it all down, and we're going to get deep and saucy and juicy in this conversation. And as always, I'm hoping that through my own personal experiences and through my own personal stories and my own wisdom and what I've learned and what I have grown through, I really just hope, and my intention is that you're able to see something in my own story and you're able to try this on for yourself. Okay. Now, not in any way, disclaimer, not in any way am I a therapist, a psychologist, or any, I don't fall into any of those categories. So my intention is to obviously just deliver and channel through to you what I know and what I have personally been through, and try something, but try it out. Just try it on. Take a piece. Take a little piece here and there. Try it on. If you like it, cool. If you don't like it, amazing. There might be some things that I say that you might think, oh, well, that's not my vibe, or I don't like that. And that's totally fine. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like the things that I say in this episode. You don't even need to agree with some of the things that I say in this episode. But that's okay, because I'm someone's cup of tea, and then I'm not some people's cup of tea, and that's totally fine. We can agree to disagree in some areas. So why am I saying all this? Because we're going to be talking about some things today. We're going to be talking about a few different things. So we're diving deep into how childhood conditioning wires us to mistake sex for love, how generational trauma plays a role, and why some of us are out here giving Oscar-worthy performances to people who wouldn't even text us back if their life depended on it. And I'll be sharing my own story, one that took me years to fully understand, so you can start breaking these patterns today. And if not today, maybe in a month's time, or maybe in 6 months' time, you think, oh, I remember that time that Jessica was talking about this very thing that I am doing in my own life right now, and maybe it's time to change. So now, the dopamine hit of attention and validation. I want to explain to you how your brain works, all right? Our brain gets conditioned to link sex with worthiness. And why this is especially strong in people who lacked emotional security growing up. Okay. Now, when you grow up in a house where I love you was as rare as a man who actually reads your texts before responding, you start looking for affection in some questionable places. Next thing you know, you're out here giving A+ effort to a F man just because he called you beautiful after tequila shots or love bombed you on the first date and you think they're the one. How many times, and I am guilty of doing this, okay? I'm so guilty, and this is a pattern of mine that I've had to like consciously try to stop doing. Every time I would meet someone, I'm a hopeless romantic, okay? I still love the Titanic. I still cry every time I hear the Titanic. But every time I would meet someone and we would somewhat vibe, like not like 100% vibe, but we would like 50% vibe, and he's good looking and he was, he was nice, or he would love bomb me and tell me everything that I wanted to hear, tell me how beautiful I was and oh my God, you're so great and like you're so pretty and like all these things. And every single time I would go home and I would tell my mother and my sister, he's the one. Every single time. Every time. And maybe you do this now. Maybe, maybe you're a man who meets a woman, and every single woman that you meet, they are the one. And there's this funny meme, and I absolutely love this meme. And every time I see it, I just laugh. It's like when every girl, it's like, oh my God, he's my world. And they get those people that they get in relationships, one relationship, and they blast it all over social media. And you see like the start of the dating period, and then you see the honeymoon phase, and then you see, them doing life together, doing all of these things. And then you get taken through the 6 to 12 months breakup and the projections and the deflections, and you get taken through everything all on social media. 2 months later, they're in another relationship, and you got to go through the whole goddamn cycle again. And then the person is always like, this person is my world. And it's like, well, what are you trying to build? Like goddamn solar system? How many people how many men is going to be your world? How many women are going to be your world? We think that this person is the one every time. And that's not to say that you can't love multiple people in your lifetime. You definitely can. You can have lust, you can have love, and then you can be in love. Like there's so many different people that you may connect with. Like your first love is not going to be your last love. Some people go into a marriage, they fall in love and then they fall out of love and then they'll meet someone else and there's another love. Like that isn't just not about that. But like when you first meet someone and you think that they are the one, they're not the one. Just because they love bombed you and told you everything that you wanted to hear, it doesn't mean that they are the one. Okay. Because if love when we look at our childhood, okay, and this is where I want to like speak into like early stages of life, all right, and where we sometimes get very confused in relationships and intimacy around what love actually means. What does it mean? What does it mean for us? What does love mean for our own heart? What does love and intimacy mean for ourselves? And if you grew up in a home where love wasn't freely given as a child, you will grow up as an adult with a subconscious belief that you have to earn love. And I'll give you an example. Growing up for myself, I'm a first generation Australian, South American, spicy, aggressive people. Father side is Uruguayan. Mother side is Chilean. Okay, very, very spicy. And they say that South Americans can be very aggressive. Passionate, not aggressive, just passionate, very passionate. But aggressive. Also. And obviously, like my grandparents migrated to Australia. Okay, now we obviously come from a country that doesn't have a lot of money. The poor are very, very poor, and then the rich are very, very rich. There's no middle class. It's either poverty or there's wealth. And my grandparents came to Australia, and I think my dad was about 8 years old at the time, and they moved to an area in Sydney in Australia, Western Sydney. Now, Western Sydney is known in certain key areas is actually known for poverty. So there are 12, if not more, actually now. There's like 15 or more generations of poverty in one area in government housing areas. And the government of Australia thought that it was a really smart idea. And I know that this happens in other countries as well. Thought had a really brilliant idea where let's just put all of the poor people in one area and build like this community of poverty and of financially depressed people in one area. It obviously creates years and years of suppression and oppression of so much mental, physical, emotional, financially. Like it really creates this community of low frequency people. And I hate to say this, and I really hope that I don't offend anyone when I say it, but you see it. And you see it. And that's when my grandparents moved to, because that's all that they could afford when they first moved to Australia. Obviously they had to wear thick skin. My dad had to wear thick skin. They had to not they couldn't speak English, so they had to wear a barrier. They had to protect themselves. They were in a country that they had just moved to with no money, no nothing, and they had to put up with a lot of big walls around them. My mother, she also went through her own things in her own life through sexual abuse, and lots of abuse as a child. And I don't want to go too much into that on this episode, but my mom learned to protect herself as well and not trust people and not let people in. And then when you grow up in a home like that from two parents that, and I love my parents a bit, and my parents truly have changed my life. Like my mom changed her life so that I could have a better life. And if it wasn't for my mom finding God and finding her own healing, that I probably wouldn't be here today to be able to deliver this. So I'm so grateful for her, and we have such a strong relationship, and I am grateful for the relationships that I've had with my parents, that I can talk about this openly without going too deep, without the consent. But you can imagine, like, when you grow up in a home where your parents are emotionally disconnected and they don't express love, they don't share the words "I love you" or teach you what love is. And majority of what your childhood could be is of anger or a suppression of love, and then that then makes a child feel like that you have to perform in a certain way to earn love, because you think, well, I'm not doing something right and my parents don't love me and my parents don't show me love, because as a child we come into this world and we're whole, we're purity, we are our purest form, we are love and light and enlightenment. But then it's our experiences that we go through as a child up and through our adolescence and then into our adulthood. It is the experiences that we encounter that make us believe whether we are good enough or worthy enough of receiving love, and it changes our perception of what love is. But when we come into this world, we are pure light, we are pure love. And if we as a child think that we have to earn love and we have to perform in a certain way to get love or get attention, then that's where we then take that into our relationships as an adult, where we think, well, if I do this, then I get that. And our whole soul's existence on this planet is to find love, receive love, and create life. That is what we are meant to do as human beings. So if this is the home that you grow up with, where you may have a avoidant mother or father or caregiver that you may have, and you have avoidance of feelings, then that's going to create you an anxious attachment style. And this then leads you to believe that performing in some certain way is gaining love. And sometimes that this manifests into you thinking that if you give sex, or if you have a sexual intercourse with somebody or have intimacy with someone, that maybe if you give yourself, then you will gain love in return. That maybe that they will love you. But this also creates an addiction to validation, attention, and external approval from other people that you may probably not ever get. And the only thing that that does to you is it actually creates a huge lack of self-worth. And I do want to make this very, very clear on this episode that confidence is not self-worth. Confidence is ego. Confidence is a mask. It's a pretend. I put on this mask every single day to protect myself, and I act in this certain way from the outside in. I do my hair, I do my makeup, I do all these things, and it's an act of doing, and I'm trying to be somebody, and that's what creates confidence. But then there's also a self-worth magnetic confidence and self-worth magnetic personal power. I am so confident in myself and who I am. That is a completely different type of confidence. So if you grew up without consistent emotional safety, you may be subconsciously programmed to chase love through sex or chase love through other activities that involve intimacy, because at some point your brain decided that love isn't something that just happens. It's something that you have to earn if you act a certain way or perform in a certain way to get that love. So being attracted to emotionally unavailable partners, the feeling like you need to prove your worth for intimacy, getting addicted to the cycle of the highs and lows in relationships, all of this stems from this: I need to earn love, I need to get love. If I perform in this certain way, then I will be loved. So tell me why I once thought cooking a full meal, sending a thinking of you text, and putting on my best lingerie would make a man feel committed to me when he couldn't even commit to his own purpose in life. Like, that was a serious thing that kept happening. Like, I'm over here giving wifey energy and he's giving, sorry, I'm just bad at texting energy. I'm just bad at texting energy. Trying to make it make sense. Okay. So I dated so many people like this. I dated someone, when was it? What year are we now? Last year, I dated this very avoidant man, and I actually started to say to myself, and it's all these patterns will just like come out in your life over and over and over again, even once you've done all the deep work. But I dated this guy last year for I think it was 3 months, roughly. He doesn't think what we were dating. And this is the thing. This is the thing. This guy didn't think that we were dating. But we were definitely dating. And this is how you end up in these situations where you're just overgiving, giving this person girlfriend status, giving this person wife status. Or even if you're a man, you would do the same maybe to a woman, where you're giving husband benefits or boyfriend benefits, but you're not actually in a relationship, nor are you officially exclusive. And I would actually overgive. I was overgiving myself to this person, and then he would be like, oh, sorry, I didn't text you back, or oh, I read your message and I forgot, or oh, I've just been so busy, I've had so much going on, or I thought that I did think of calling you today, but I didn't. But then it would be 5 days or 6 days until I would hear him again, and they'd be like, oh, let's do something, I want to do this. Or he would love bomb me and on dates and say things about our future together. And then at the end, he completely fucking gaslighted me and said that we weren't dating and that it wasn't even serious, and said all these crazy things. And if this person ever listens to it, lol. But at the end, and then he wanted to be friends. He thought that we were friends afterwards. And all of these patterns, all of these patterns, and the way that I was behaving, I would just say to this guy, oh, it's okay. Oh, I get that you're busy. Oh, that's all right. Oh, yeah, I can be available for that day. Or yeah, I'll be free then. Or I would just be comforting this guy and his unavailability in hopes that he was the one. Pedestal. Okay, in hopes. The same thing, I find myself, and the wild part is I find myself dating different versions of my father. It's they're all my dad, but different guys, different stories, different lives. And then somehow I end up in these situationships, dating guys that have had the same amount of trauma as me or similar trauma, so that I can like trauma bond with them and find connection with them. And you might find this in your own dating encounters, but you're gonna date people that are your parents, period. That's it. And you may not see it now, but if you really, really look at who you're dating and you look at all of the patterns and the behaviors, like do yourself a favor, go get a pen and a piece of paper, go and sit in a quiet room for a whole day. And I want you to write out every single person that you had a sexual relationship with, every single person that you dated, situationships, like been in a relationship. And I want you to write out everything. And then I want you to just sit with yourself and I want you to have to think about like what your relationship was with your mother or your father. For me, I have noticed recently, and this was like a really big thing that I recently, and when I say recent, I mean like December. It is now, what's the date today? January 6th or 7th. And I actually realized this in December. And I realized that I was in a situationship and I thought I was in a relationship. And it made me realize that I was literally again in a situation where I was dating dating. So I don't even know what it was now. That I was in another situation where it was still my dad. Still the same thing over and over. And I'm getting very emotional because I think this is still very, very fresh for me. And every time I talk about my dad, I tend to get very emotional about this. And this is not where I was going to take the story, but anyways, we're segueing, we're going into it now. So my relationship with my father was very avoided. He never showed me his love, not that I can remember. He never really told me that he loved me, not that I could remember. I was the tomboy. I was the boy that he wished that he had. I rode motorbikes. I wore hats. I hung out with my boy cousins. I did boy things. And I was the son. I really feel like I was the son that he never had. I got treated like one of the boys. I got yelled at like one of the boys. I got punished like one of the boys. I was the first child. I was a one night stand that popped up, pregnancy 6 weeks later. So I just found out. But it's a funny joke in the family now. But I was the first child. I was the unplanned child. So did my parents know how to love me? No. Did my parents know what to do with a child at such a young age? No. Did my parents plan me? No. Did they have conversations about like what it was going to take to love a child or raise a child? No. Like none of this. So like my dad I don't believe that my dad knew how to love me. He only knew what his father taught him and what his mother taught him. He only knew what he knew, and he only knew with the tools that he had. And then what I noticed is that I kept dating the same people like him all the time. Like ever since I started having boyfriends and all the rest, it would just be a version of him. And I would chase for love. I would chase for attention. I would chase for significance, to feel significant in someone else's life. And at the age of 13, I was put in a really uncomfortable situation. When you lie to parents and, the girl at school says, oh, just tell your mom, like, we're going here, like, we're going to this, you're coming to stay at my place, but we're going to go and do this. And I was at a brand new high school. It was my first brand. And I did what she told me to do. And I told my mom, I'm going to stay at this person's house. And that's what I'm doing. And mom's like, okay, cool, it's your first brand. That night, an 18-year-old picked us up. And I was 13, I do believe. I was 13 and he picked us up and he gave her alcohol and she drank. Now we're 13 years old. I had never drank before. I'd smoking a cigarette, but I had never drank alcohol before. I'd never been drunk. She got really, really drunk. And this is someone that I didn't even really know. Like, I didn't know what she does in her spare time. As far as I knew at this point was she lies to her mum and tells her mum that she's going here, but she's going and meeting these older men. These boys, 18 boys. That night, I did not drink alcohol. I did not feel safe. And I didn't know where I was. I didn't know where I was getting taken. He took us to his house. I didn't know where I was. I was in a brand new state. I didn't know what area I was in. I didn't know what location I was. I don't even think I had a fucking mobile at that point. I don't even know. Maybe a Nokia 3315 back then, or maybe it was a Samsung. I don't even know. And I will never forget that night, and it really fucked me up. Like, really fucked me up. And I didn't realize how much this had fucked me up until I was 27 years old. That night, my own virginity was taken from me. And I will never forget saying no multiple times and feeling so uncomfortable and not knowing where the fuck I was, what location I was in, whose house I was in. My friend who's 13 passed out on the floor from drinking, underage. I'd lied to my mum, said, "Mum, I'm going here," and I went somewhere else. I don't even think I had a mobile. Like, this is back in, like, I don't know, 2012, 13. And at that time, I will never forget the words. And I remember thinking to myself in that moment, like, how many times do I have to say 2006? How many times will I have to say no? How many times? And I will never forget, he turned around and said, "But I love you." And that was the first time I had heard the words like, "I love you." And that was the moment that my brain associated, well, if you give sex, then you get love. And then in my mind, I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to get sexually abused, it is so much easier for me to just say yes and consent to it, because it's going to happen whether I like it or not. And I say yes, and it was the most horrible fucking experience I had ever been through. The most horrible. Talk about, you watch all these love movies, it's all romantic and it's all beautiful and all these things. It's not. And I'll never forget going to school on Monday, feeling so much shame, thinking, does everybody know? Does everyone know? How am I going to tell someone about this experience? Who's going to believe me? I said yes, I consented. Technically, I consented. It was consented sex, but it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't. It was well, I need to protect myself. And if I have to protect myself, maybe it will make me live with myself for the rest of my life if I say yes. But it really messed me up at that point, and I was just riddled in shame. And then it really altered my perception of myself. And this is like the full message of this episode today is like, when something like that happens, or you go through something, or you have emotionally disconnected parents and emotionally avoidant parents, you start to seek validation and love and connection through other ways. And normally it's through an act. For me, it was through sex. I thought that if I gave men sex, that they would love me, that maybe I would hear, "I love you," that maybe I would hear that because my dad left. My mom was going through her own stuff. But maybe if I just maybe if I just give myself, have all these different sexual partners, one man after the next, after the next. Mind you, I'm a young girl. I'm only 13, 14, taking drugs. But at that point, after that, I spiraled out of control. I'm taking drugs. I'm partying. I'm not coming home. I'm walking the streets at 2 a.m. I'm getting arrested. I'm stealing. I'm doing all these fucking things, spiraling out of control, in chase for love and attention of maybe I'll get seen, and maybe someone will just love me. Maybe my dad will love me. If I can't get my love from my own father, who's meant to build up my femininity and build up my self-worth, because that is the role that a father plays in a woman's life. His role is to build your femininity and your self-worth. And if your father's not around, then your mum has to help do that. And she has to take on that responsibility to build up that femininity within a woman's own personal aura. Otherwise, for me, I just kept dating all these guys, just have sex with this person, to the point where I literally felt so disassociated from my body and disconnected from my body that it got to a point at the age of 26, all the way up to I would even say from 26, I was aware of what was happening. And then at 30 was when I really realized that something was really messed up. this chase, the validation, this giving your body in return, hoping that you will receive validation, you will receive love, you will be seen, you will be heard, you will feel connection. Like if you just give your body to multiple different people, whether you are a man or a woman and you've gone through something similar, if you just constantly do that, eventually you're going to reach a point where energetically and like somatically in your body, you will become so disconnected during sexual intercourse that you may not even feel anything because you've suppressed so much of your sexual energy and your life force, and you've been trying to give your body freely in hopes that, well, maybe this person will love me, maybe this person will validate me, maybe this person is the one. But really, every time you do this, you give your soul away. You give a piece of your soul away, a fragment of your soul away. You just give a piece. And for a woman who literally creates life and has a reproductive system, like us women, we are life force. Like your reproductive system literally creates human beings. For 9 months, you are baking a baby. Like you're creating life. Like women are mother nature. We are life force. It is our reproductive system holds all of our emotional being. It is our femininity. It is our self-worth. It is just everything that we are. And when you've gone through sexual trauma like that, your womb becomes affected. And this happens to men as well. You become so affected that you become disconnected from the very thing that creates life force. And that's what happens when you try to chase love through sexual acts in hopes that you will feel love, that you will feel whole, that you will feel this sense of purity that you once felt as a child that was maybe taken away from you, or that you once felt at some point in your life that was taken away from you. And until you actually focus on healing that, and you will forever feel this disconnection in relationships, and you will just constantly date different versions of your parents. And that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I continue to do, is like, and it happens in the subtlest ways. I date different versions of my father, of this unavailable, emotionally unavailable man who, if I change myself, or if maybe I'll become this, or once I get this right in my life, or like once I'm this, then I'll have this, once I'm this person, then maybe he would love me at that point. But love isn't like that. Love is, I choose you for who you are now, not until you become this other person. Or you don't have to. Love isn't this, I'll give you X in order. It's not like this currency exchange where it's like, well, only if you give me X, then I'll give you X. It's, love is unconditional, and you don't need to do anything extra or be anyone extra in order to receive love. But for someone like myself who has like anxious attachment, I know that I manifest avoidant men in my life because that's what I'm used to. That is an energetic blueprint. That is something that I was programmed to believe as a young age, and that it has gone in through all my adolescence and in my adulthood. And then if you have an energetic blueprint where you believe that you have to overgive yourself or overcompensate, you're just going to keep manifesting the opposite, which is avoidance to intimacy, avoidance to love, closing off, walls up. So the only way to break that cycle, which I have realized in myself, is like, no, when I have very strict boundaries. I don't have sexual intercourse with someone until there is exclusivity. And it doesn't mean that we have to be in like a serious relationship, but I will refuse to be in a sexual relationship with someone that is having sexual encounters with other people. I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to prove that I'm good enough. I know that I'm good enough. I have standards for myself. There is a certain standard that I have set for myself. And this is what I encourage everyone to do. Like, giving sex is not a fucking standard. Sex is just a sexual activity. You may feel lust, you may feel chemistry, and it feels good. And it's like, oh, there's this huge dopamine here. And then 2 months later, you realize the sex is shit and you got nothing else left but a messed up emotional system. So for me, it's more so around like, I prefer, and this is where I think for anyone listening, like, get very, very clear on intentions. What are the intentions when you're seeing someone before you just go and have sex with someone? Like, you don't just give sex to get attention or get love or get that person on your side so that maybe that they'll like you. They need to see you for who you are and your personality. And there also needs to be compatibility. Number one, what are like your boundaries and your standards? For me, like, I knew when I went into this relationship last year, which wasn't really a relationship. It was a situationship. Now that I look at it, it just looked different. Like, I was very upfront when we first met. I was like, I'm looking for a relationship. I want to be claimed within the first like 3 months. And my boundary is that I'm not having sexual intercourse with you until there is exclusivity. I just won't. And that is a boundary for me. That's a boundary for my self-worth. And I know that this is why. And he had asked like, well, why? And I explained my trauma. I explained everything. I said, like, I have been through this and I know that this is a really big healing path for me. And I have an anxious attachment. Like, I will become a very emotionally connected and probably a little bit of a fucking psychopath if we have sex and there's no commitment. Because if there's no commitment, then I'm chasing you for love and I'm overcompensating and I'm changing myself in order to get your love because I've sexually given you myself. And at the moment that I give you all of my emotions and the moment that we are connected is the moment that I'm handing you the responsibility of my heart and my word. And if there's no commitment there, then I'm just going to have daddy fucking issues. I'm just going to have daddy issues. I'm going to feel not good enough. I'm going to feel like I'm not in a secure relationship. I'm going to feel like all these triggers are going to be coming up. So get yourself some boundaries before you go. Get very clear on what your boundaries are. Like, you don't need to just have sexual intercourse with everyone unless it's like a one night stand and you know how to energetically like disconnect yourself from that person. But have boundaries. Like, what are your boundaries? What are your standards? What are you looking for in someone? Have these conversations in like the first month. If you don't have these conversations, you're going to end up in situationships or in these sexual entanglement things where you're then trying to have to prove your love and prove who you are in order to get love from someone that is just not fucking ready to meet you where you are. Until they're ready, like, and if you don't communicate this, you're going to end up in situationships that just will not serve you and what you need. And the next part is just to know when to walk away. If your needs are not being met, if your boundaries are being pushed in a way that is actually being unhealthy for you, if you are communicating, this is my need and this is my boundary, like, this is what I'm looking for. For me, and why I chose to walk away from someone absolutely amazing at the start of this year was that I knew what my boundaries were. I wanted to build a life with someone. I wanted to be in a serious relationship. I wanted to be cherished. I wanted to be loved. I loved myself, and I wanted to have emotional safety and emotional stability. That's what I wanted. And I was very clear with that's what I wanted. And unfortunately, if that emotional safety and that emotional stability is not created in a relationship, then it just won't work. It won't work because then your triggers are triggering one another. One person's becoming avoidant, one person's becoming anxious. So if that's not there and there's not strong communication about like what the future looks like, then there's no point being in that situationship. There's no point being in that relationship. Because there's no way forward. A man is supposed to lead and supposed to create emotional safety and emotional stability. And a woman is also supposed to create that as well in her own way through her own feminine aura and her own alpha wavelengths. But if one person is giving all and one person is not or cannot give all, and, you know, for me, it was like, well, I'm just not ready for a relationship. I'm like, well, shit, I thought we were fucking in a relationship because you called me your girlfriend. So, like, where the fuck did I get confused in these conversations. But then again, it was never, hey, I want to be in partnership with you and I want to be in a relationship with you and I want to build a life with you. There was none of that actual conversation. It was just all fairy airy words. So you get to a point where you need to have discernment. For me, I'm fucking sick of dating versions of my dad. I'm just done. I really don't. I don't have fucking time for it. And anyone that's listening to this, like, if you were dating the same fucking types of people, it doesn't matter how great they are. This guy was amazing. Like, he's absolutely amazing. And my heart is so, like, heartbroken. Like, my heart is heartbroken. But at the same time, I'd have fucking standards. And I refuse to marry or have children with someone that has the same patterns of behaviors like my dad. Otherwise, I'm just repeating the same thing. And if I have children like that, like with someone like that, then what am I taking forward into the future? And you can avoid all of this by like drawing a line in the sand. And draw a line in the sand, get yourself some fucking boundaries, get yourself some fucking standards, walk away when you need to walk away. And if you feel like that you're chasing for validation and chasing for love and chasing for attention, then that person is just not for you. Love is unconditional, and love is actually not as hard as what people think it is, but two people have to be willing to do the work in order to come together in unity. Anyways, guys, that's it for this episode. I rambled for far too long. Someone get me a timer for the next one. Goodbye.